Thanks for watching this special edition while we are celebrating 8 years under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. The president was sworn on the 8th of June 2014, and he pledged to uphold the republican system, respect the constitution and the law, and work to improve the standard of living for all Egyptians and restore, of course, stability after years of political turmoil and security lapses. Well, throughout the past 8 years, Egypt has been keen to open up to the whole world continuous lines of communication with all the international parties, and has managed to chart strong relations with the outside world, and also worked on the economy and establishing bases of social justice in the large concept. Several mega projects actually were inaugurated across the country, all contributing in a way or another to achieving the economic balance. Tonight we'll be talking about startups and know more about what the startups mean and how far do they have an impact on the economy. On tonight's episode, our distinctive guest, Mr. Seif Hafez, global economic financial expert. He's going to talk to us about those important files, the startups also globally, and how does he see the startups in Egypt as an experience. Egypt has become an emerging startup hub in the region, offering a variety of avenues for startups in order to raise capital, and also for attracting further investors, private equity firms, in order to work. And also we have here SME focused funds and more. We'll be talking about that. And it was always the challenge for Egypt of building the human being. That's why through the past 8 years, the president has concentrated on investing in the human capital, and the Egyptian character is considered to be one of the fundamentals. Also tonight is we're making history in Egypt and in the field of media, as in less than a couple of hours, the eyes of the whole world will be turning to Florida, where the Egyptian Nilesat 301 will be launched. And this is considered to be another achievement for Egypt and for Egypt's media. A high-level Egyptian delegation presided by His Excellency Mr. Hussein Zain, the head of the National Media Authority. They are now in Florida, following up on the procedures for launching Egyptian Nilesat 301. Our news correspondent, Mohammed Abdullah, had conducted this interview. Here are excerpts from His Excellency Hussein Zain's interview with Mr. Mohammed Abdullah. Let's watch.
واحنا بنتشرف اللي احنا بيبقى فيه انجاز لجمهورية مصر العربية في المجال الاعلامي بانطلاق القمر 301 باذن الله.
فندم، يعني بنتكلم النهارده عن النايل سات والهيئه الوطنيه للاعلام، الشريك الرئيسي بيشارك اسهم بنسبه 41% من اسهم النايل سات. كيف يا ترى يا فندم النهارده مشاركه الهيئه الوطنيه للاعلام في هذا الحدث التاريخي؟
هو ده التطور اللي بيحدث في جميع العالم من وسائل اتصالات حديثه، فلازم يبقى في مشاركه. طبعا نايل سات الهيئه الوطنيه للاعلام تملك 41%، والتقنيه الحديثه اللي بانطلاق القمر 301 دي التقنيه المطلوبه. هو بيغطي المناطق اللي ما كانش بيوصل لها القمر الصناعي السابق. احنا بنغطي دلوقتي دول افريقيا ومناطق كتيره فيها في حوض نهر النيل، وده كان مطلوب، واحنا كنا بنعاني منه حتى في المحطات عندنا، وكنا بننقل على اقمار اخرى، فتم معالجه الموضوع دون. وده جزء كبير على فكره، واتجاهنا كدوله من ناحيه افريقيا والخدمات اللي بتقدم من خلال الانترنت. الانترنت واسع النطاق، اللي هو هيساعد كمان داخليا وخارجيا عن النطاق العالمي زي ما احنا بنتكلم. فالنايل سات بانطلاق القمر الجديد بيساهم في كل الاجواء العالميه اللي احنا بنتكلم فيها، وبالعكس احنا كمان رفع الكفاءات وده مطلوب. وباذن الله ان شاء الله يعني مع انطلاق القمر الجديد هنلاحظ في فرق في الكواليتي الصوره، حتى في انطاق التغطيات، في كل الاشياء دي يعني، واحنا كنا بنحتاجها كقنوات اعلاميه على المستوى الداخلي والمستوى الخارجي.
Yes, as we've seen, we are actually expecting and awaiting the launching of Nilesat 301 because it is going actually to provide a better quality, as Mr. Zain has outlined, for our picture. This in addition to or definitely reflecting positively on the feed and the quality of the stories that we are going to present. Mr. Seif, as we have followed together the interview of the head of the National Media Authority, Mr. Hussein Zain, and Egypt had took great strides regarding digitization. Today we have Nilesat 301 launched. This in addition also to going through a new venture of having, giving entrepreneurs chances and starting startups. So many would like ask you, and I guess this comes also through your YouTube channel concerning startups. What do we mean by startups? Who could start a startup?
Well, thank you for having me first, and let me go into. First of all, I have to say that Egypt is blessed by having more than 100 million. The more people you have, the more innovation, the more ideas, the more intelligence you go through. So Egypt has contributed to 26% of all the startups that happened last year in the MENA region, which is massive. Like 25% of startups came out from Egypt. What is a startup? A startup is a vision of solving a problem that's existing in your society. You found the gap in a certain area that you would fill it through innovation. Innovation is number one in societies and countries. The United States in the 1800s, when they started getting more advanced and more in control, they did two things. Infrastructure, which is Egypt doing now.
Yeah.
Massive infrastructure, which is really a fantastic thing that Egypt is harboring. And on top of that, innovation. Innovation meaning what? You go ahead and innovate. You go ahead and think of whatever you want to do and do it. So a startup, what's the difference between a startup and a small business, for example? Small business is like you open a restaurant and you create a restaurant. You have a limited amount of people that would walk into the restaurant and they would fill up the restaurant, and that's about it. A startup is limitless. A startup goes through the social media, goes through the limitless amount of audience that you can penetrate. There's an organic growth of the startup, which is between you and the vicinity where you are. And there's actually a more startup where you want to take it more into the next level, where you go to different countries.
Yes.
So a startup is basically a vision that you have, that you want to create to fill in a gap in the society for a better future, directed to the clients.
Yes, and this is actually very important because you are, while you are upgrading the Egyptian character, you're also searching and looking for job opportunities. You are working on a labor that excels. You are preparing the youth for leadership.
Of course.
And usually we're working here of giving the youth this sense of chance. So what sort of incentives from your experience and you would like give to the youth today who would love to like start a startup?
Well, a startup is a very interesting concept. What you do is you basically come up with an idea, you and let's say a friend of yours, and you fill in a gap that's existing in the society, and then you need a little bit of more funding. So usually you would go to a relative, an uncle or a friend that will be the first person that's willing to risk their money to give you some money in order to progress in your own future and in your own company. Afterwards, you go for different, there's a procedure where you go for a startup. Afterwards, you become successful and you gain some money and you want to grow. So you go for something called a Series A round of raising funds. So going back to your point, which is what incentives do I give to, I want to tell you that don't lose hope, because I don't want to say bad news, but I just want to tell you that not all startups, they
flourish,
see the light. Absolutely. But then again,
but try.
They try. I heard something in Switzerland that I always loved very much. It says that if you're riding a bicycle and if you stop paddling, then the bicycle would fall.
Right.
So you have
keep
to
on going.
You have to keep on going.
You have to keep
Yeah.
on going. Yes, keep on going, and Egypt is like keeping on going. And tonight is a history-making day for the media while we are launching in a couple of hours. Egypt launches NISAT 301 from Cape Canaveral Air Base in Florida, the United States, replacing NISAT 201 and boosting the internet speeds. NILESat 301 will be delivering communications, direct digital broadcasting services to NILESat's existing customer base, and also providing a broadband connectivity all over Egypt. So it adds also, all this adds to the friendly environment where the startups and where those doing business are actually working.
Absolutely. And I just want to add also one important point is that there are a lot of people who are so much willing to give money for startups, like really. And why do people give money to startups? It is because of the exit strategy, which basically they want to walk in, they want to invest in the business, and they want to exit the business. So this is part of this. Absolutely, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Yes. Well, due to Egypt's evident interest in the field of entrepreneurship, well, barely a week goes without an Egyptian startup announcing an investment round. Egypt had opened doors for many young people who are really talented and wanted to think out of the box and think about ways to innovate and create and control their tomorrow, hence unleashing this sense of potential, entrepreneurial potential, let me say. So how Egypt is presented to the world today as a model for development, which is actually then hence enhancing foreign investment.
Absolutely. Egypt is considered to be the #1 spot in the emerging market right now because of a lot of political stability in the region, because of the incentives, because of the acceptance of the IMF and the World Bank in 2016, when the government had took over and made sure to implement all the strategic...
The economic reform
Absolutely.
programs.
Which gave a lot of confidence to a lot of foreigners to walk into Egypt and to be happy that this is a country that abides by the foreign and by the international standards. So people are now looking into Egypt as A, it's very stable, B, there's a lot of talent, C, there are a lot of people who are willing to innovate. So it is a fantastic arena as we speak into startups. That's without a question. Every day we feel and we see startups like no tomorrow.
Yes, very important, and you know, it's like a successful story. It's a success story, and tonight we are actually celebrating more than one success story. And launching NILESat 301 is considered to be definitely a success story that we are going to witness unleashed in the sky in a couple of hours. Short break, and we will be back. Well, Egypt is dazzling the world, and Egypt is making headlines. When we tell people to do their jobs, we get workers, and when we help people having their own businesses, definitely we get leaders. And this is what Egypt has been working on, getting leaders, investing in people, investing in the human potential. This is very important because if you're going to be launching a startup, this means that you have studied the whole story before launching it.
Sure.
And startups and entrepreneurs needs a certain vision, needs planning.
Yes.
It doesn't go haphazard.
No,
So,
of course.
so what are the sort of criteria for promoting it?
Well, what happened is a startup, if we started like from scratch, there are two people sitting together, they come up with a design, they come up with a logo, they come up with an idea, and they start, you know, testing it with friends and family and seeing if they like it or not. And if they start liking it, then they take it to the next level. They, like I said, they raise funds from family first, and then they do the structure of the company, and afterwards things get really moving, and after a year or two, people start getting very happy. The product is seeing the light, so they need to raise funds. This is the point. With startups, you have two things, an idea and money. So these are the two things that you need to focus on.
Yeah.
When it comes to money, you need to raise funds. And raising funds, it's done in a couple of procedures.
Great.
You go through raising funds like it's called Series A and then Series B, C, D, and E.
That's great. We'll continue talking about startups and the story of success, but right after taking this phono, while celebrating 8 years under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, with all his efforts to upgrade the Egyptian character and to empower the youth, will be shedding light on research done by Egyptian students that managed to steal the headlines. 4 undergraduate students in the Department of Construction Engineering at AUC have developed self-luminous concrete to light up the roadways and the pavements without using conventional energy sources. So this is totally out of the box, Seif. They created the concrete for their thesis graduation project. And this self-luminous concrete is capable of absorbing the sunlight and emitting light after dark, and can be employed also among all sorts of roads, from the pathways to the highways. So what a lovely project, out of the box ideas of a very eminent professor, Professor Dr. Mohammed Naguib Abu Zaid, Professor of Construction Engineering at AUC. And Professor Abu Zaid is the supervisor of this beautiful project, out of the box. We salute tonight on this special edition, while we are celebrating Egypt's successful stories and successes, Dr. Abu Zaid. Dr. Naguib Abu Zaid, thank you so much for joining Nile TV.
Thank you, and I share with you the celebration with the whole nation of the 8th year of President Sisi leadership of the country.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Naguib Abu Zaid, congratulations, and to your team. Let me say that ladies rock, and this is ladies empowerment, women empowerment in the sense of the word. The idea, Professor, about this project, who came up with the idea?
Well, there has been previous work and previous attempts in different countries in the world, particularly in Central Europe, trying to use luminous concrete in various applications, many of which were not successful. Few of them were successful. But we in Egypt, we have not come up with this in our concrete in a way that's known to anyone. So the ladies, in the preparing for the graduation project, they talked with me and they said, we want to do something that hasn't been done before. And more importantly, it has to be useful, it has to be applicable, it has to have some kind of dimension of environmental friendliness and sustainability, and therefore the opted for that project. One last thing to say is that usually when you come up with this idea, me as a supervisor, you have to question the feasibility, the time frame, whether they can be done within these constraints. And they said we'll accept the challenge, and they did, and I think they met the requirement in a great way.
Yes, it's really amazing, you know, and it comes even in light of Egypt's preparations for hosting the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, while we are actually focusing on implementing the pledges related to confronting climate change and using this material in such a context that is going to reduce heavy reliance on electricity and also accordingly be an active step actually towards fighting climate change and saving the environment.
Definitely. That's actually one of the steps, or a step in that direction. As you know, as the viewers know, research never starts from scratch and never ends at one certain stage. The project is aiming for that. Not only me, but I think the whole nation is working towards a successful COP27. Climate change is definitely a concern that came and continues to come in a very alarming way. So yes, that's one step along that way. I have also to mention that the project is going to go into another phase. We have been contacted by so many companies. I hear you talking about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, and so many people have contacted us, whether they are small or larger companies and so on, trying to put it into pilot experimentation prior to getting it into, inshallah, a full-fledged and full-scale product to be used. So we are encouraged. We are happy about that. And it's an alarm for all of us that we need to do more about the environment and about the climate change. And I think it came timely as well.
It came timely, and I have with me here as my guest live Mr. Seif Hafez, the global financial expert, who will congratulate you, Professor.
Congratulations, Dr. Naguib. And I heard it's a fantastic project. And I have just one question, if you don't mind, with respect to understanding the product exactly. So it attracts a lot of light during the daytime, and it transmits light after the daylight fades away, and that light goes on for how long?
That's a very good question, actually, because the ladies or the project did not only produce one particular mix, it produced a diverse or a set of mixes, at least 7 of them, with different degrees of ability to absorb light in one hand and emitting it on the other hand. Why we're saying that? Of course, the short answer to your question, it's going to continue for several hours. And actually, we did not want to put so much of luminous ingredients inside on the expense of the structural properties of this concrete as a load-bearing element in structures, in buildings, in roads. So the different mix designs that they came up with, one of them, for example, will suit best when the intensity of the sunlight is greater. Let's say we're talking about Aswan or Toshka or places like that. Another one that suits more when the intensity of light is less. And we're not only talking about Egypt. Of course, our emphasis is Egypt, but it can also continue to cover other countries in Europe and elsewhere. Since you asked this question, I have to say also, not only for how many hours, the question, and that's the more challenging question that comes into the pilot trials, is for how many years it would remain efficient. Mm-hmm. Because that's always a concern with any new materials under experimentation. And we have some measurements that are encouraging this, or test results encouraging this direction, but definitely we're taking it to next phase to give better clarity about the very long-term properties of such construction.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Dr. Mohammed Naguib Abu Zaid, Professor of Construction Engineering at AUC. We're really proud of you and proud of your team. Thank you so much. Well, Seif, as we have heard, Dr. Abu Zaid, we're talking about the future. Egypt is going smart. Egypt Absolutely. Is going green.
Yes.
And here we have the Egyptian students who are thinking out of the box. Also in startups, we do have lots of youth thinking out of the box also, and contributing in changing the whole idea.
Of course. Mm-hmm. With startups, you help in the economy a lot.
Yeah.
You employ a lot of people. You come up with innovations, and the whole world is about innovations. I mean, mm-hmm. the fact that we're here, it's based on a lot of innovations that our generations had happened to do in the past. So that's why we're here and we're doing all that. So in my understanding, from what I heard, it's a fantastic idea. It's a marvelous idea. And I can see a lot of places that would make use of that, like Siwa Oasis, for example, some areas yes. where you really have a lot of sunlight during the day, and you would save a lot of electricity, and exactly. especially places like that.
And relieve people from heat. Yeah,
absolutely.
And temperature,
yeah.
high temperatures.
Yes. Yeah. And environmentally friendly as well. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
of course.
And comes, of course, suits so much our preparation for the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh as
exactly, well. For the environment, absolutely.
Exactly. Egypt successfully established many business incubators, Seif, and talking about more than one idea. We have like فكرتك شركتك, which is mainly an idea that has been actually established by Egypt's General Authority for Investment and Free Zones, and also Bidaya, the beginning or the startup. So top business incubators founded by the government, offering funding for the new creative and innovative ideas and new startups.
Yeah.
How can we provide incentives for people to go ahead with their startups?
That's a very good question, by the way. All startups, they face the two challenges. Number one is a co-working spot where they can sit and get to know. Startups are young people that come up with ideas. They're very smart and they know what they want, but they don't have the know-how. They don't know the business. They don't have a place to work, to focus, to concentrate. They don't have someone to take their hand and lead them on. And this is where the incubators are, because it's incubator means like, you know, when you take the baby
like a
inside.
baby, yeah.
Exactly. And this is
You
where
take care of the baby.
You take care of the baby, and that's how you take care of the startups like babies, and give them ideas, give them hands, give them, introduce them to the business world as young people who are like 20, 19, 18, but they're super sharp.
Introduce them to the tycoons, maybe
to the tycoons.
Inject.
Exactly. And that's super important for the government to harbor, because this is what these people need. They come up with genius ideas, but they need that. And on top of that, of course, they need funding, of course, which also could be coming hand in hand with some help of the government. But incubators are super important.
Yes, it's very important, you know, the startup ecosystem booming around in Egypt, as well as flourishing entrepreneurship scene, receiving support also from the different governmental entities, aiding entrepreneurs in order to reach their maximum potential by offering them the fund opportunities. It's always about funding.
Yes.
Seif.
Yes.
So this is the big question mark, and I guess that this is the most current question that you've been asked.
Absolutely correct. It's all about funding, of course.
Yeah.
So how does it work when it comes to funding? First of all, like I said, you start by the close people. And afterwards, you then go to, you start going a little bit bigger. So you start going to something called the first kind of Series A round of investment. It's called Series A, as it starts letter A. And then you have A, B, C, D, and E. It continues. Every round you do, you have to evaluate your company. Let's say, for example, I have a company, and I'm going to evaluate it at $20 million or 20 million Egyptian pounds. So I go outside and I raise 1 million. So when I raise 1 million, that 1 million is what? It's a percentage of the 20 million. So that 1 million is a percentage. And the more you evaluate your company, the bigger it is and the more funds you can walk in. And then you keep on issuing shares, and there are two ways to fund your companies. And there are no other. It's either an angel investor, someone that would trust you, it's not a family member, and would be willing to give a lot of money. But that's one person. It's called an angel investor because he's an angel. He's a very nice guy, you know.
Yeah.
And then the other one is it's the venture capitals. Venture capitals are companies that they go around, they gather a lot of money for startups, and they inject those money in startups.
Many questions concerning providing startups and entrepreneurs in Egypt with the various business incubators, and also those startups when they go public. This in addition to in what way or another are we going to inject what we call the money engines?
That's a very important point that you mentioned, because no investor wants to walk in startups unless he knows that he's going to exit. This is the incentive of startups, of investors. If he walks in, you're going to exit by
You won't get locked.
Yeah, he doesn't want to get locked.
Yeah,
I'm an investor. I'm going to put my money in. I want to put my money in, make sure that I'm going to get my money out. You have two ways to get your money out. Either someone is going to come and buy you as a very good idea, or you're going to go IPO. You're going to go into the stock market. And that way, you will exit as an investor.
Oh, so you find for yourself a way out by going to the stock market.
Of course. Yeah, of course. When you go through the stock market,
then you start the whole cycle again.
Yes, you initial public offering, so you give your shares to the public, and that way all the investors that had invested...
You swim again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And the
investors... It goes smoothly again.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people who walked in the early stages and injected a lot of money, they will get the money out. And this is a... But by the way, there's one point I want to mention, very important. People who invest in startups, they know that out of 20 startups, probably 18 are going to fail and 2 are going to make it.
Yeah.
But they still inject money.
Yes.
Because the 2 that are going to make it are going to skyrocket.
Yes. Since we're talking about skyrocketing, we are expecting the launching of NileSat 301 skyrocketing بمشيئة الله, God willing. And this is going to be a real hit and a history-making night that Nile TV International is going to follow on air, the launching of NileSat 301, a history-making event for Egypt and for the Egyptian media. Congratulations. And we are following up minute by minute, and we are really honored to have with us in the upcoming hour on our coverage Professor Dr. Hussein Amin, Professor of Journalism and Mass Communication, and he is going to tell us more about the significance of launching a NileSat 301, how it comes timely, and definitely how it is a very important step on the road that is going to be on Nile TV International shortly from 10 p.m. to 11, and of course the details of the launching. I'm still live with my dear guest Seif Hafez, and we're talking startups and talking the future of the youth, and talking injecting new blood in the whole cycle, economic cycle, and achievements, economic achievements for Egypt. 8 years under the leadership of President Sisi. We'll be back. Launching NileSat 301 is considered to be another hit for Egypt and for the Egyptian media. And as His Excellency, the head of the National Media Authority, Hussein Zain, has outlined in an earlier interview with the news correspondent, Muhammad Abdullah, that how this important satellite is going to make a difference, how it is going to reflect positively also on the quality of the footage and also on disseminating data. This, in addition to we as Nile TV International, it will definitely help also in our message to deliver and disseminate throughout to the world, and also to Africa. That is a very important dimension as well. Back to startups, and the president kept up urging the private sector to maximize its role in economic development, to direct the government to support the role of the private sector and as a valued economic development partner. So the government and providing a best economic environment or investment climate safe for which is suitable for startups in general. Which is the best economical or investment climate to go ahead with a startup?
The best is to create support like incubators, is to create awareness to a lot of people, is to encourage people that fail, like they say. I always heard that fail is first action in learning, F-A-I-L, first action in learning.
If you won't fail, you won't learn.
Absolutely, exactly. So I think that is something that is super important for, and I think the government is already doing that, is really harboring a lot of startups, and in order to progress in their field. And by the way, I just want to mention one important thing as well. A lot of startups that had started in Egypt had gone to Africa. And I don't want to mention names, but a lot of very important companies in Egypt here, that they raised millions of dollars on their rounds of investment, had gone into different countries in Africa, and they are doing excellent. So
that's great news, you know. It
absolutely.
means that we are excelling. It means that we have put the right plan and the vision, and we are capable, and we have the potential to expand.
Exactly, and Africa is a huge market.
Of course.
Yeah, and we are always viewed like the
there we
country.
had a great year under the leadership of the president and Egypt's chairmanship of the African Union.
Yes.
This did actually bear fruit and extended, you know, triple hands of cooperation in the different fields.
And by the way, just out of figures, Egypt had reached $5.4 billion of exports in this year, and this is considered to be the top number so far. So that's fantastic.
Great.
And
Yes. Having known about the governmental as well as the private institutions that provide help and provide a sense of support to the startups and the different projects, how about the startups? You've lived in Switzerland.
Correct.
And still you do. As an Egyptian expat staying in Switzerland,
Yes.
What's so special about Egypt's youth? I guess that you meet lots of Egyptian youth excelling in Switzerland and parts of Europe. And how about the economic outlook for the Egyptian market and the Egyptian incentives here?
Yeah, well, Egypt here, I have to say that there is definitely, as being an Egyptian that lives in Switzerland, and I can see the difference between here and Switzerland, and I can see how startups are performing and how people here are being encouraged.
Yeah.
I have to say that Egyptians are born to, honestly, it's a fact. They are born to struggle and to perform and to progress and to succeed. The system itself in Switzerland, it's a fantastic system, but it's more of you graduate, you find your job, and you're settled, you're happy, you get paid, everything is being taken care of you. So you don't really have that motive of fighting and succeeding and progressing. That is one thing, and I think also the fact that we have a bigger population here that also adds so much. So.
But definitely this is a plus because we are investing today in people, and
exactly.
we are working on the Egyptian character and the Egyptian identity. Startups create jobs, which means more employment, and more employment means improved economy. Definitely. Startups also have a direct impact on the cities that they make their homes.
Yes.
In a way or another, this is true. So they create new industries all the time.
Yes, absolutely. They do create new industry because startups, like we had thought about it and mentioned, it's filling up a gap, which is like, for example, a certain company that had found out that people, they have homes and they don't rent it out, and there's a lot of people that are looking for homes but they can't find it. You link between two. You bring those homes to the people who are looking for it, and bingo, you do like the math, and this is a startup. Or people who's got cars and people who are looking for taxis, you bring them together, and this is where you have an opportunity. So these are startups, you know. But then again, I have to say that with startups, there are certain jobs that are going to become obsolete because innovation and technology, which works hand in hand, you know. Like, for example, there are certain companies that came out which made other companies uncomfortable. But this is the way the world works, you know. This is the way how it is. When industry had happened, and in the past days, you know, a lot of people had hated the progress of evolution.
Yeah, talking digital transformation, you know, it's in the whole world is like moving forward with steady steps towards digitization. Egypt is part and parcel, of course, of this story as well. And well, digitization and startups, entrepreneurs building a successful startup. How do you see this sense of a flourishing environment for startups vis-a-vis also digitization?
Absolutely. This is one of the prime things, you know, because let's say, for example, if you have a restaurant and your restaurant is filled up by 100 people, for example, or if you have a hotel and you want to promote your hotel, there is a maximum that you can do in that hotel. But with digitalization, for example, and with social media, the platform is unlimited. You need only to penetrate different people and to walk in. For example, like there's a software that came out which would deliver food from restaurants to end users. This is the idea of the software. And that one would not have any limit to the number of clients who would participate, because it could be the whole country, it could be the whole world, you know, that would want people to participate. So, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it can take like hours to talk about startups.
Absolutely.
And it's a very trendy story. And I thank you very much, our global financial expert, Mr. Seif Hafez, for coming to Nile TV studios live tonight. And actually, Seif came on a history-making day for Egypt. 8 years of success under the leadership of President Sisi, and Egypt launching Nilesat 301. Thank you very much, Seif.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you, dear viewers, for joining us, and stay tuned. Launching Nilesat 301 minute by minute, a follow-up on Nile TV International. I'm Taghreed Hussein. Many thanks for watching.